I was going to say what Filoteia said. God promised that He would.
Take turns, please.
God promised that He would not only have a son at the age of 99, but also His children will have children. And He might not have believed it until His wife did have the son. And once He saw that was true, then I'm sure He believed that His children would also live on to have many other children. So He knew God was good and was helping Him.
If you take this kind of reading, which is the correct reading, then you approach the text with the notion of covenant in mind. You know that the covenant is a binding agreement that you cannot break. So is God going to break His promise? No. Abraham knows that. So whatever happens to Isaac, Isaac will live. Because God said that his children's children will live and so forth. What Abraham doesn't know is how this can happen. He doesn't know. How is Isaac going to live? He doesn't know. But he knows that Isaac will live. Now, if you read the same text without this framework in mind of covenant, this whole story is about testing Abraham, whether he's able to live how shall I put it, at the altitude of this covenant. If you read the text just as a story, literally, then you get into all kinds of troubles. Either you say, well, this is nuts. If God told me to test my faith by I don't know, flying a plane into a building. How about that? Have faith. Allah Akbar. Well, I would do it because I'm a believer in God. If God told me to blow up this house and in the process kill everybody in there, well, if that's what God asked me, I would do it. Well, if that's the case, then forget it. I'm not going to become faithful at all. Religion is for nutty people. It's a dangerous thing. We should root it out. We should brainwash people into stopping this religious nonsense. Because look, it has this violence attached to it from the very beginning. Or you could take the other route and say, well, that's what it says. I'm going to do what it says. And that's how religion can very easily become a very, very troublesome thing. There is a whole category of religious disease, really. And no religion is spared. No religion is spared this kind of thing. Even Christianity, we say Christianity is a religion of love. Well, people have been butchering each other and others in the name of a God of love from the beginning of this religion until this day. And the way you inherit this religion and the way you're going to practice it and pass it on to your children when time comes, this will determine also how Christianity spreads or doesn't spread. Whether it convinces people, it turns their hearts to God or away from God. So this is entirely dependent on how you read the text and how you understand following in the footsteps of Abraham. However, the story is not about the drama of being torn between the duty to God and the love of humanity, and somehow love of God would trump love of humanity and you would obey God by doing all kinds of forms of in the name of God. It is rather about the covenant. This story is a story about the covenant. The test is simply, does Abraham understand that he has a covenant with God? Can he really trust God on this? That Isaac will live, no matter what. And Abraham does. He passes the test with flying colors. Aside from this, when Christians read this text, this is a reading that could apply to Christians and Jews. But when Christians specifically read this text, they pick up on some kind of odd phrase here. Maybe you can tell me what I'm getting at. Take your son, your only son Isaac, whom you love. Further down, I know that you fear God since you have not withheld your son, your only son, from me. Does this ring a bell?
Reminds us of Jesus. God gave his only son.
In the gospel according to John, the very beginning of it, it's what we hear time and again in the liturgy. Very often it's not heard because the priest tells it silently or secretly. But if you read the text of the liturgy, or if you are in a church where the priest is accustomed to read it out out loud. You hear it at the very central moment of the service, when we recite everything that has happened. And we say, and when God saw that we had fallen away, He did not leave it at that, but He did all kinds of things for us, and He did not spare His Son, His only Son. For so much He loved the world, and now he's quoting the Gospel according to John. So much God loved the world that He gave His Son, His only begotten Son, for the life of the world. That all those who believe in Him shall have life and become children of God. Well, this is the connection that Christians always make. And so sometimes in the iconography, the icons, the depictions related to this moment, you'll see Isaac carrying the wood, because he's the one who's carrying the wood, carrying a beam that goes across his shoulders, and he's carrying like this because the iconographers wanted to make the point Isaac is a foreshadowing of Christ, and he is carrying the wood in a way that foreshadows Christ carrying his cross, the traversal beam of the cross. So this story was especially important, especially special to Christians. But it was not a story, it was not understood as a story in which God contradicts basic common sense and decent love and love of humanity, but a story about the covenant. And the covenant is what gives Abraham this assurance that Isaac will live. Sorry, how do you have
Mă iertați, credeți că ar trebui să ne mutăm din nou la umbră? Că deja, da, că deja văd că soarele da, i-am încălzit. Ne iertați. Băieții, puteți să-l ajutați pe domnul
Nu,
Iohan
nu-i
să-
nimic de asta.
nu?
Mulțumesc frumos.
Ok, luați
Doar
pe
vă așezați acolo și eu vă urmez.
Dorina, ar fi ideea să facem pauză de 2 minute să ne schimbăm în scurs sau ceva?
acolo e umbră. Aia mergem la umbră, nu trebuie să ne schimbăm.
Oh, thank you. And I'm sorry I told you to sit because you didn't know about the camera.
Vreau să stau cu picioarele mai sus când aveam loc.
Da. Acum o să fie mai bine pentru toată lumea.
Da. Everyone say cheese because it's still filming.
Yes, because when I'm going to edit, I must say have synchronized points between cameras at the start.
So to finish up the point, when we think of Abraham as a model of perfect obedience, of perfect faith, it doesn't mean blind faith. People sometimes say, well, if you're a Christian, you're stupid because you have blind faith, which means you're not really using your intellect too much. You're not questioning it. You are following like a sheep. Sheep are, we think, I don't know, we're stupid, but we think they are stupid. You're like sheep or like people. You follow blindly. And your faith is nothing but some kind of idiotic trust in whatever you're told to do. And that's really not what Abraham has to propose us anymore. Abraham's faith is not blind faith. It's a very rational faith. And it's an enlightened faith. It's enlightened by the covenant. He knows, he trusts God because of the covenant, not because of some vague idea. He trusts God because God has made this promise to him. And he has, as it were, the contract to show God. You said this, that, and the other.